Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network's YouTube channel. You are joined once again by Kyle Fisher. I'll be your host today with a litany of our Phillies writers and some guys who cover other sports for PSN. We'll get into that in a moment. We have my man, another lead writer for the Phillies, Alec Costoval, alongside Chris Babos. And jack of all trades, Corey Nido, the guy stays busy all day long, has us covered at the majors, the minors, NFL, you name it. The guy's calling ball for pen, baseball, whatever you need. Corey's got your back. Guys, Phillies are riding high right now. A lot of good work. If you saw Sean Nestor, our another one of our lead writers, he talked about the Magic in seven straight, 7-game winning streak, and then a 7-game hitting streak from Bryce Harper as well. Alec, I'm going to toss it over to you to get the conversation started. How we feeling today about our Phils?
You can't feel bad. I mean, if you are overthinking things. The Phillies are on a 7-game win streak, just like you said. I mean, who doesn't enjoy winning baseball? But some things have happened, especially with like the Jose Alvarado suspension, which really sucks. Really sucks. Especially the year he was having, and the fact that the guy just wanted to lose weight. But the fact that the Phillies have not stopped winning since that news. Through multiple fronts. I mean, the offense looks good. The pitching looks fantastic. Mick Abel came out of nowhere, to throw one of the greatest starts a rookie's ever made for the Phillies. You can't feel bad.
Yeah, I think oh, wasn't it great, Chris? I was there for it live, going up against Paul Skeens. What a matchup.
So good.
And I think one of the things that you brought up right off the bat, Alec, is the suspension of Jose Alvarado may have been something that you feel would be a black cloud over this team. Some of the bullpen struggles that they've had, even though they've been much better as of late, I think that could have been something that distracted fans from the product on the field, especially if they had scuttled a little bit through this recent stretch. But they didn't manage to do that. Yes, they lost 2 of 3 to the Cardinals in what ended up being an odd series with the rainout doubleheader. But they've gone off and won 7 straight, in convincing fashion against what may be considered some lower quality opponents. And it brings up a question that I've seen I developed a question for myself that I wanted to talk to you guys with. And Corey, I'm going to toss to you to get your feelings on this first. Yes, it's 7 in a row, but it's against the Pirates, probably the second worst team in baseball, and the Rockies, the worst, one of the historically bad teams in baseball, at least to start. Is it that they are playing bad opponents, and that's the only reason we've seen this recent run of success, or are they doing what they need to do against the caliber of opponent? Is it playing good baseball and it looks even better because they're bad, or is it just the fact that we're playing bad opponents, and once they get to maybe some more competition next week, bringing Atlanta back to Citizens Bank Park, are we going to see a much different look? So, Corey, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts on this recent run?
Yeah, I've always been a proponent of you can only play who's on your schedule. So this is a stretch where, you've got inferior opponents. Good teams take care of business. The Phillies are taking care of business the way they should. They take care of the Pirates. They sweep the Rockies in 4 games. They had a come from behind win in was that first game with Christopher Sanchez on the mound. So for me, I'm not going to take away the 7-game win streak from the Phillies because they played the Pirates and Rockies, because that just so happens that's who's on the schedule. Against 500 teams, they're a 500 team right now, almost 12-13 against teams with a better 500 record. But right now, I mean, these are also games where you can get guys to start feeling better at the plate. You can get guys in a groove. And for the Rockies, you mentioned, I mean, they're historically bad. They're on pace to win under 30 games this year, which is absolutely absurd. But no, I don't take anything away from the Phillies. You have to beat the teams on your schedule. And I mean, what would we be saying if they've lost 3 out of 7, 4 out of 7 to these teams? So I think for me, it's just, hey, play who you got to play and dominate. And that's what they've been doing both offensively and pitching. I know yesterday was a low scoring 2-0 game, but it didn't really seem like the Rockies ever threatened or you were worried that they were going to pull out that win.
Yeah, I have a very similar feeling, right? If they were winning every game like they did Game 4 against the Rockies, or every game like they did in that Paul Skeens game where you're barely scraping two across against a lesser opponent, I'd feel a little different, even if they won 7 straight. I mean, I've never feel bad about, like Alex said, I've never felt bad about winning 7 in a row, right? Regardless of the team, you can never feel bad about that. But the fact that they did it in such a dominating fashion, they looked like a team that should have easily handled them instead of playing down to their opponent, like we saw a lot during the Gabe Kapler era or the thin eras, when they weren't necessarily a great ball club. You'd see them all the time. They'd show a flash against a good team, then they would look just as bad as a bad team. So, Alec or Chris, anything to add about this recent run and how you feel about the competition versus the way that the Phillies are playing in a silo?
Yeah, I actually have one thing I want to add. The Phillies beating the Rockies 7 straight games in 2025 has never happened. The Phillies in their history have never gone 7-0 or better against an opponent in a season. That has never happened. This team's been around forever. You'd think somehow, some way, one of these months they would have back in their way to beating, I don't know, just somebody random. Let's say the Pirates in in the early 70s or something. You know, who knows? But that's the first time it's happened. So you need to. It's not just that they beat these bad teams, they swept them. They
Oh
swept them.
yeah.
It is hard to sweep series. Doesn't happen often. But the Phillies been playing well, and they've done just that. Chris, did you have
Yeah.
something to add?
Yeah, I mean, the starting pitching is really what it comes down to, outside of Bryce Harper shaving his head and then just going absolutely Super Saiyan, which is great to see. But no, I mean, we touched on Mick Abel, who had one start, but I mean, you go across the list. Wheeler's been Wheeler. It's everything that you could want from him. Aaron Nola's Aaron Nola. He's going to give up his home run, hopefully with nobody on base. And then he's going to give you 6 strong innings, which, honestly, I think most teams would take that from a second starter. Christopher Sanchez, fantastic. Jesus Luzardo, can't believe he's a Philly. Don't know why Miami decided to trade him in division. That it just unbelievable. I mean, outside of the fact that it's Miami, but
Not the first time they've done that.
yeah. I mean, it's great. If I remember my stat correctly, I believe they're 14-5 in the month of May, which is wonderful. Which one of those things that the common topic around Philly, and you heard it in April, is the Philly struggling. You didn't see it last year. Last year was like a pristine April, if I recall correctly, where like everything was good. The
I
Phillies
think there
were
was
winning.
a small bump to start, but otherwise,
There was
yeah.
a small bump, but I remember
But like
it was one of those
May,
things.
that was insane.
You were just like, we're sitting on the top of the the Phillies are sitting on top of the NL East, and it's like the end of May, and they kind of just rode that wave from there for the most part until got a little rocky towards the end of the year. But it's just one of those. This feels more like a typical Philly season, in they struggled a little bit early, but the pitching's been fantastic, and honestly, if it stays strong and if they get contributions from the bullpen, because obviously losing Alvarado hurts, it's a very, very dangerous team come playoff time.
Yeah, it's going to rely on them staying healthy, and they were lucky enough to do that for the most part last season outside of Ranger Suarez. The health of the rotation is important, but one thing that helps with that health is the depth that they've seemingly flashed, right? You have 6 guys who have been viable starters on the roster, one on the injured list, and Aaron Nola at the moment. But then we had the surprise spot start from one Mick Abel, former top pitching prospect for the Phillies. I think he's their number 8 prospect right now. The guy has shown a lot of potential in the past. After a really poor 2024 season, he was able to come back this season, get off to a hot start, and went toe-to-toe with Paul Skeens, the phenom, this past Sunday. Really impressive outing, as Chris hinted. He and I were both there. The guy looked electric. But one thing I liked, we had the opportunity to speak with him. I was down covering the game for PSN on Saturday, and he spoke to the media before the game. And a reporter from On Pattison, Anthony Sanfilippo, had the chance to speak to him the week before in Lehigh Valley and speak with him again. And they talked a lot about the change in mindset. And it seems that his focus, instead of focused on what can I bring as a whole, it's control what you can control 1% better each day if possible, right? Work on small things. The little things matter. Build up your repertoire, build up your control, build up your stamina. Work on one little thing at a time and know that you may not see the results overnight, but if you work on getting 1% better each day, you will see those results in the long term. And that seems to be his focus in the offseason. Some writers at the Inquirer and some writers at the Athletic have both broken down Abel's approach, but we've seen this with other guys, right? Marsh didn't necessarily have his head on right to start the year. He goes on the injured list, gets some time down in the minors. He's been on fire since coming back. A few guys who have maybe not had the brightest prospect light shown on them, really seeing a difference. And to me, it's a distinct difference in the Thompson era versus the eras right beforehand, where they still looked like they could be a playoff team. And it's not just Thompson, it's not just at the major league level, but it really seems to be an organizational message about slightly improving your game, control the things you can control. We've seen it remember when Jose Alvarado went down last year, how electric he was or what was it, the year before, how electric he was after coming back. The changes that Christopher Sanchez has made and the way he's evolved the last couple of years. They've taken these guys who maybe didn't seem like top tier players and have developed them, something that may have been lacking before. And that is, for me, that's going to be the transition. Corey, we're going to go to you. Corey's been our guy on the ground in Lehigh Valley. He's done a ton of coverage for PSN with that AAA team, focusing on Andrew Painter, but focusing on everybody. So not only are we talking about the improvements that Painter has seen, the improvements that Abel has seen, to me, it feels like an organizational message. So Corey, I'm going to go to you. Let me know your thoughts. Have you seen a different vibe down there in AAA, or is it kind of just, hey, whatever we're seeing in the big league club, that's what I'm seeing down here too?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an over layer of pitching and the depth that you mentioned, and also just the success. I mean, there's guys that aren't going to light up the radar gun, but they're putting good numbers together. There's a guy, Chris Matt, he's been down there, softer throwing starter. He has had really good numbers. And Abel really has been a great story. I was able to talk to him before the season, and then a couple of weeks ago when the Philly media was there for Painter. And Mick told me and everybody else, he said he really tinkered a lot, both physically and mentally in the offseason. He said that he just was trying to be a sponge. And after every start last year, he would go and watch the video and he would just beat himself up over it, where now he has changed his definition of what success looks like. And he said it feels really good having that new definition. And when he said that to me, he just let out like a smile and a sigh of relief, because he just, before the season started, you could tell he has figured out a way to lift a huge weight off of his shoulders. You mentioned, former top pitching prospect, number 8 in the system right now. I think a lot of people forgot for Abel, he's only 23. He's been in this system for a long time because he was drafted out of high school, really highly touted. Scouting reports that he was arguably had the best command of any high school pitcher in that draft. And, 23 is still on the younger side to figure things out, especially on the pitching end. Painter's 22. So that just kind of puts in perspective, of how young Abel is right now. But yeah, overall, the pitching has been really fun to watch in AAA. I talked to Andrew Painter about Abel's outing the other night, and he cracked a big smile, and he just said it was absolutely incredible. The whole team was watching it on the road up in Syracuse. So they were certainly reaching out and rooting for Mick, which is a really cool story in all. I mean, because at the end of the day, all these guys want to get up to the big league and help these guys. So you mentioned Mick, you mentioned Painter, and the other guys, and even the bullpen, there's some really good arms there that might be able to help kind of that revolving role that Lazar is filling right now. I don't know if he's going to stay up the whole season, but there are definitely some other guys down there that can be certainly serviceable when the time comes.
And then Corey, I also wanted to ask you, being down in AAA, what is that team gotten from having Garrett Stubbs behind the plate? for these young guys. We've seen a little bit out of it, but what have you personally seen up there in Lehigh Valley?
Yeah, I mean, Stubbs has been great. I've been in AAA. I've covered AAA. This isn't my first year covering it, and I've dealt with some veterans who got sent down, and they are mean. They don't want to talk to media. They don't want to talk to anybody. They're mad that they're down in AAA. Garrett Stubbs is the complete opposite of that. He is fantastic. Anthony Contreras, the manager for Lehigh Valley, said that Stubbs is basically another coach on the field, and he has really taken this young pitching staff under their wing, his wing, excuse me. And what I loved of what Garrett said leading into the season is he's not going to push his wisdom or his experience on these guys. He said, I will be here for when they want to talk to me, but I'm not going to be a guy that says, oh, well, you know, Aaron Nola does it this way. Zach Wheeler does it this way. He's going to just be a sounding board for when the young guys need to talk. And I think the most telling thing about the success of the pitching staff down in Lehigh Valley and how it parallels with Stubbs behind the plate is that Andrew Painter told me the other night that whenever he's been getting in trouble, it's when he's shaking off Garrett Stubbs and Peyton Henry, the backup catcher. The other night, it was a 3-2 count. Painter shook Stubbs off for a 3-2 curveball, and Painter didn't have the curveball working the other night. He threw 3 of them, and the one of them was a result in a walk, and that was to the number 9 hitter, which would have ultimately, if he got him out, would have been 3 up and 3 down first time through the order. He would have retired the 9 batters in a row to open up his start. So Stubbs has been phenomenal. He's very cordial. When Painter was there last or a couple weeks ago for his AAA debut, Stubbs comes out. The whole media scrum is there, and we sit down, and he's like, well, who are you guys here for? And we all laughed, and we said, oh, Andrew Painter. And Stubbs replies, who's that? So, I mean, he's just keeping everything loose. Listen, I know Philly fans don't like Stubbs, the antics he pulled a couple of years ago in Arizona, but the man is on. I mean, he's doing everything he needs to warrant a call back up. We're not even talking about what he's doing offensively. He's got a 24-game on base streak. He is absolutely mashing the ball. And okay, you can argue, hey, it's AAA pitching. It doesn't matter. He's not sulking. And he's not just, whoa, me, why am I down here? He and his wife just bought a house in the Allentown area. That's his house for the year, regardless of what happens. He's happy there, and he's making the most of it. So it's been a lot of fun to see how Garrett has been able to handle the demotion to start the year and then also really take these pitchers under his wing.
I love hearing that about the shaking off and how, like, the one of the biggest mistakes you can make is shaking off that guy. Because if you remember, was it earlier in the season, I forget if they won or lost the game, but Zach Wheeler said the only pitch that he shook off JT in a game was a home run. Orion Kirkering shook JT off once that same game. It was a home run, right? So to see, people talked a lot about how the defense was very comparable and how the command of the game was very comparable for Stubbs.
Oh, it was that pitch to Kyber Ruiz on opening day.
Yes.
They ultimately won that game. I was there. Oh, that bat took forever. And of course, it just ends with a home run to right field. And it's like, you're kidding me. This guy was already like 2 for 2 today.
So, Alec and Corey, I'm going to rely on you guys a little bit. One of the things we wanted to talk about was, yes, they're a little thin in the bullpen. That may have been the case before the Alvarado suspension ever came down. But with the potential for Abel to come up, with knowing that Painter's coming in the wings, with Nola, if it's not a serious injury and he's able to come back quickly, they suddenly have this surplus of starting pitching that probably makes them the envy of the league. I mean, starting pitching, the only people who seem to have more starters are the Dodgers, and they can't keep them healthy. So it's really the health and the depth combined puts them in a unique situation where they have too many arms that are almost major league ready to find a place for all of them. I know that the short-term plan is once Nola is ready, they're going to put Walker in the pen, and Thompson was quoted as saying recently that will be his place moving forward. They don't want him to have to keep adjusting back and forth. So even if they need a spot start, they would likely turn elsewhere. when they get to that point. I think that will allow Walker to really adjust his game plan and his planning, but that's not the point of this conversation. They have a surplus of starting pitching, thin in the bullpen. Corey, I know you mentioned there was a couple arms in the pen that you liked down in AAA that we should keep an eye on. Alec, I know you had some minor league guys. I wasn't sure if it was arms or hitters that we should keep an eye on. So, Corey, I'm going to go to you first, and then Alec, we can bounce off of you. Corey, who are some of the arms maybe if we don't just start shoving everybody in the bullpen who's a viable starting pitcher? Who are some of the arms that potentially the Phillies could turn to in-house to help them with that deficit in the pen?
Yeah, I think Seth Johnson is on top of the list for the Phillies right now. They have transitioned him into a reliever. He's made 4 starts, and then to start the year, now he's made 10 consecutive appearances out of the bullpen. ERA is a little high at 4.65, but if you dive deeper into his numbers and outings, of those 10 relief appearances, he's only allowed runs in 2 of them. The problem is those 2 runs, they were a little lopsided, 3 and 4 earned runs given up, but 8 out of 10 outings where you're transitioning from a starting role to a bullpen where you're not giving up runs, that's a pretty solid ratio for any type of reliever. Johnson came over in that Gregory Soto trade along with Moises Chase, who just went down with Tommy John surgery. So he's done for the year. I know Johnson had a cup of coffee last year with the Phils making 1 appearance, but overall good numbers in the minors for Johnson, a 3.05 ERA. He's made 83 total appearances, 66 being starts. So it does seem like the Phillies are thinking about making Johnson another relief pitcher, maybe a long inning type of guy for either they're up by a lot or they're down by a lot just to eat up some innings there. There's another guy that I'm interested in who has some MLB experience. His name, where's Joel Kuhnel? He has been really good. Big guy, 6'5", 290 pounds, 30 years of age. Definitely not a prospect. He's pitched in 88 games in the bigs. He spent time with Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, and Houston most recently. But he's been fun to watch. He can pound the zone. He's been giving up some runs as of late, but comes in 17 appearances, 16 strikeouts, 20 in the 3rd inning. So not going to wow you with dominance of, striking out the side, but he does have big league experience, 5.86 ERA in the bigs. And, he could definitely be somebody that I think might get a chance in the bullpen as well. I don't think they are going to make Andrew Painter pitch out of the bullpen when he comes up. I know there's a lot of clamoring on social media and people are saying, well, why wouldn't you do that? They are so focused on building this kid's pitch count up, and they are so focused on making sure that they do it correctly and in a timely manner where there's no way that they're going to just let him air it out in the bullpen for an inning or 2 because his arm is way too valuable. I could see that with maybe a Mick Abel if they don't move him. Hey, if I'm the Phillies right now, after that, I know it's one performance from Abel, but you got to be thinking that he could be a decent trade chip for a legitimate reliever maybe if they go that route. I think they hold on to Abel and they could maybe transition him into the bullpen because he's got some really electric stuff when it's on. I mean, you guys saw it firsthand last week. That was the most locked in we've seen Abel, but you can see the stuff is there. So those are 2 of the guys. Again, I don't think Painter is going to go in the bullpen. Abel might be a stretch. He's been starting the whole time. And those 2 guys are really the other guys. Obviously, Lazar is up there. Devin Sweet is another pitcher to keep an eye out for. He's been struggling a little bit. ERA is over 6.5 right now, but he does have more strikeouts than walks in 16 in the 3rd innings. But he's a 28-year-old guy that can provide some depth as well right now, which is what the Phillies need right now. I know Alvarado getting popped with that PED hurts in the back end, but they've got back end guys still. Romano has been phenomenal. You could throw Strom if you need. They're looking for guys kind of in the middle that need to eat that 5th or 6th inning if a starter can't give them those.
Yeah, and they'll definitely want somebody in the back end, but I think they're confident with the guys they have that somebody will step up, and then that's what the trade deadline is for, right? I love the idea that you just brought up about Abel going back there. I know that he was electric as a starting pitcher. I don't know how much people are clamoring to move him, but if you need somebody, I look at the Painter discussion. Now you have to keep in mind that he's coming back from Tommy John, but I look at it how what the Rays did with David Price back in the day, right? You might not have a full-time spot for him in the rotation yet, but an electric arm out of the bullpen come September, come October that can help you in a spot where you clearly have a need. That's a role I think Abel could fill. Painter could if they were willing to go there, but I think they don't want the high stress on the elbow, especially you assume guys are going to ramp it up in the pen. Chris, Alec, any thought on some of the guys that Corey mentioned in the pen, or anybody you guys have your eye on for anything creative in-house?
Chris, you want to go?
Okay, yeah. So honestly, I saw I was thinking of this as Corey was talking. The Brewers just released a guy
Joel
earlier.
Iamps.
There you go. That would be a good option at least to take a look. He's struggled this year, but he's always been fairly reliable in the majors. So as a designated for assignment, would be a good flyer for the Phillies to kind of take on that one. But I kind of agree with the breakdown. You know, I don't think it's as the sky is falling as everybody makes it out to seem. Yes, obviously losing somebody of the caliber of an Alvarado is gonna hurt. You know, if there were 6 of them on the team, then yeah, you would be fine. You know, there's not 6 guys that can rack it up to 101, 102. You know, but also there could potentially be reasons he was throwing 102 right out the gate in spring training. So I think it's one of those that it's the Phillies are in a good spot. We mentioned the winning streak from the start. So in the event that they do hit a rough patch with this bullpen, which you kind of expected after the Alvarado news, the fact that they kind of avoided that kind of seems like it's smooth waters, which was always a little scary in Philly.
And then,
Alec, what are your thoughts?
I'm more on the side of the Phillies will probably end up going out and getting someone impact on the trade market. But what I'm looking for through with some of the minor league guys are who are the trade chips for the Phillies. First off,
Okay.
you just talked about it. Mick Abel really did help his stock with his performance going head-to-head with Paul Skeens. You can't fall in love with it, though, because it was those Pirates. If you watch that game closely, he did miss in the zone a few times that were hittable fastballs. I think it was mostly his fastball, but it'd be like 95 and a half, like middle top part of the zone. Good MLB hitter gets that and rips it. But I still think he would have had a good start regardless of the team he faced. But I'm saying good is maybe he goes 6 inning, 3 earned runs, something like that. Still encouraging, especially compared to what we saw in previous seasons from Abel, but he is probably their loosest trade chip at the moment. I know early on the season it was, flip him to St. Louis for Helsley. Well, St. Louis is good. They had the Phillies number this year, winning both series home and away. So that's not going to happen. A guy that I think could be a guy is Pete Fairbanks down in Tampa Bay. And Mick Abel, it feels like that's a kind of pitcher that the Rays would really like. But beyond that, going a little bit deeper, the Phillies have had this pattern of trading their breakout prospects for something at the trade deadline. We're talking about Ben Brown for David Robertson. We're talking about Aldegari, and I can't remember the other guy's name, for Estevez. They do this fairly often through the Dombrowski regime. Regime makes it sound odd, but nonetheless, here's a couple of guys that I've seen in the lower minors for the Phillies that could be guys that they're like, yeah, we're interested in this guy. Here's a couple of guys that, we would trade. They're having good seasons. First one's at Jersey Shore. He's on the injured list right now. But I believe he should be back soon. I think it was early May that he went on the injured list. That's Rylan Heredia. Heredia, he was a signee, international signee for I think around $300,000 out of the Dominican. He started the season really well. 16 games, he was hitting .333 with a .563 slugging percentage. His problem in the minors really has been swing and miss. He struck out 13 times in those 16 games. Super reasonable. This is a guy that just last season in A-ball struck out 97 times in 70 games. So I think this is really showing a path of improvement. And if you're another team, this might be a guy that you think you can sneak out from under the Phillies. But in reality, it's getting what the Phillies want for this guy. Who knows, but what happens when he returns from the injury, and I couldn't find specifically what the injury is, of course. But I think that's guy on the offensive side. Another guy is actually an undrafted free agent that they signed last year. Don't get his name flipped around like I did while talking about this guy in our group chat, but it's Ryan Dromboski. He pitched for UPenn, and he is having a really good start with the Threshers. He was kind of just pitching multiple innings later in games to start the year, but 3 out of his last 4 games he's appeared in, he started and gone at least 5 innings. And in each of those 3 starts, he's allowed 1 run or less. He's been looking really good. In his last start, he struck out 9 5 1/3. This could be a diamond in the rough that the Phillies just signed out of their backyard. He's looking solid. Corey, I know this is a guy that you've mentioned before. Have you seen anything from Dromboski?
Yeah, Dromboski. But yeah,
Dromboski.
but yeah,
I was saying Dombrowski in our group chat.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you mentioned diamond in the rough in the backyard. It was a surprise actually when the Phillies signed him as a non-drafted free agent. I know the Quakers, they were penciling Dromboski as their number 1 starter this year. He was the 2023 Ivy League Pitcher of the Year. Can throw really well when he's on. His junior year, he struggled a little bit. He still was an honorable mention all Ivy selection, but he did not have the season he did as a sophomore. And I think to me, that was a little curious as to why he signed the contract, because he finished with an ERA over 7.5 last year. I thought he would come back and try and improve his draft stock, but the decision has panned out very well. As you mentioned, he's transitioned into a starting role now, and after giving up 3 earned runs in his pro debut, he's given up 4 earned runs since. So I mean, he has really figured it out. And you mentioned he's got 9 games under his belt. 3 of them now have been starts in succession. So he's a fiery competitor. He pitched with a lot of emotion at Penn. A lot of fun to watch. He helped them win an Ivy League conference tournament title. So he's a winner. And fun fact, his teammate Eli Trope, who's going through it a little bit on the same team with Dromboski down there in Clearwater. So Trope was actually drafted by the Phillies. Dromboski signed as an undrafted free agent, as you mentioned. But yeah, Ryan's a great kid, really fiery competitor. And, for being around the Penn Quaker program, to see him succeed, it's been pretty cool. So was pretty pumped when you mentioned him in the group chat last night.
You hear that, guys? First-hand knowledge from the kids' college years. That's what you get here with Corey and the crew at PSN. Guys, just wanted to do a quick reset for us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Philly Sports Network on YouTube. Alley talking all things Phillies with my man Alec Kosovo, Chris Babos, and Corey Nido. I'm Kyle Fisher. You can catch us all on socials. Everybody has their social in the video except for Alec. Alec, why don't you tell the people where they can find you real quick, and then we'll hop to the next topic.
If you search the name I have the screen, Viceroy Alec Kostoval, you'll find me. I'm either Kostoval on base on Twitter, formerly Twitter, or I'm on Blue Sky. I believe it's Baseball Alec. But also, if you just search that name, you'll find me.
I like it. Corey, great insight from the minor league perspective, stuff that you don't see covered across the board. So thanks for all the hard work there. One guy I wanted to ask about before we move on is Otto Kemp. There's been a lot of talk about Otto Kemp, and he's been playing a lot of different positions. The guy has been absolutely lights out in the minor leagues. Long term for this season, I should say. Maybe those ideas are counterintuitive. So let's say for this season, is he more a guy that would help the major league roster, or is he a guy that will help via trade as they send him out to potentially a place where he might get to the dance a little bit quicker?
It depends on how well he continues to hit in AAA. I think he has exceeded a lot of expectations. He is also another undrafted free agent, played at a Division II school out in California. Had a great chance to speak with Luke Merton, the player development director for the Phillies, about Otto. Spoke to Otto's head coach out in college for a piece that I did that's pinned up on my X feed for those who are interested. But the kid is just a hard worker, and Anthony Contreras, the manager for Lehigh Valley, paid him the compliment of he's a ball player, and he said that term isn't used loosely within the Phillies organization. Like, that is one of the highest compliments you can get from this team and club is he's a ball player. He shows up every day, puts his head down, gets to work. He's hitting north of 300 on the year. He leads the International League in almost every significant offensive category. He was penciled in to play left field yesterday before the game was rained out. I have not seen a lineup yet for Lehigh Valley today. But Luke Merton told us, hey, we do not want to stunt this kid's growth. So if that means we're playing him in left field, we're playing him at third base, whether it's first base, maybe even second, like, they just want him to be as versatile as possible to help not only the big league club, but of course, obviously, the possibility of bringing up more value for him as a trade piece. I don't think he's going to be a plug and play everyday starter right now. And I think if that's what fans are hoping for, I think they're going to be a bit mistaken and upset. I think he's a better version of Weston Wilson, if that makes sense currently. I do think that he can be an everyday starter, but it's just a remarkable story right now, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's not a flash in the pan, because the kid is just a legitimate player who just loves the game of baseball and he's easy to talk to. But yeah, I think to answer your question, he could be a decent piece off the bench moving forward and kind of be that platoon guy out in left field. But I also can see, as Alec mentioned during, this front office, they'd like to capitalize on when a prospect is red hot and move them for established major league players. I mean, I think that's what a lot of teams would like to do. A lot of teams not necessarily don't want to hold on to their prospects too long, and it's finding that right moment, to strike iron when it's hot, but also, do you want to give up on a kid that has really flourished this year? So I could see him coming up as a September call-up, maybe platoon out in left field, maybe give Bohm a day off at third. Defensively at third, he's solid. That's his primary position, but he has made a couple of errors there. And he says he feels comfortable in left. At the end of the day, he just doesn't care where he plays. He just wants to win. So that you can't teach that.
Yeah, man, that attitude is something that you'd think would be in everybody, and it's there a little bit, but it really starts to stand out with guys who just take it to the next level at the major league level. Thompson, before a game in early May, was asked about Kemp playing the outfield, and he said all reports are that he's solid enough everywhere. Yes, he's an infielder by trade, and he's good enough. He said, but if given the opportunity, he wouldn't hesitate to move him out to the corners in the outfield for the long term. Apparently, the early reports were that he's solid there overall. I love the idea of him being a helpful utility guy off the bench. But like you said, and Alex said, to echo what you guys said, they seem to capitalize on these guys when they have maximum value. And one guy who we already hinted at has maximum value, obviously, was Mick Abel after that impressive performance. He needs to continue it in AAA, and if he gets another opportunity, we'll have to see what the results may bring. But Chris, you were talking about potential to revisit some rumors from last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a top arm at the back of the bullpen. So whether it's Kemp, whether it's Abel, let's go down that road where you were thinking on our chat earlier today about who they could potentially target, and maybe those two guys could get it done.
Something about somebody that we're getting ready to see this very weekend out there in Sacramento with the Oakland A's, and that would be Mason Miller. Very highly touted reliever. I think he's just about to become arbitration eligible, which is where the Athletics tend to have to pay some money. And if you followed anything about the Oakland Athletics, or I guess soon to be Las Vegas Athletics, they don't particularly tend to spend money. So I posed in the chat whether or not Abel is a strong enough piece to potentially entice a team like, are they Oakland or are they Sacramento officially?
I think they're not actually
Just
listed
the
as anything.
Athletics.
Yeah,
they're
they're just
just
the
the
Athletics until they didn't even give them Sacramento.
The team formerly known as the Philadelphia Athletics.
Well, yeah, let's bring them all the way back.
We'll go that way. Yeah, look, anytime you can get a reliever in the back of your pen that can dial it up to 102, 103 consistently, as we've seen from Miller, you got to kind of take a look at it, especially if you have aspirations to go ahead and win a World Series. So while I could understand kind of exactly what Corey was saying, that you don't want to give up on these prospects that are potentially blossoming right in front of you, i.e. a McAbel or a Rincones Jr. or a Kemp or something like that. Those are the kind of prospects that these other organizations are looking to trade that high-end talent.
I do think it's going to take more, though, than a Kemp or a Rincones Jr. to get Miller from the A's, because before this 9-game losing streak, they were 2 games above 500. So they're kind of hanging around. I know Miller's it'll be a phenomenal get, but I do think if they pull the trigger, it is going to take more than even an Abel and plus to get him. I mean, they're going to have to move somebody significant. So, I mean, unless the A's just say, hey, we don't care, and maybe the season completely crumbles, but I don't know if the A's are going to get bamboozled by the Phillies. But yeah, if you throw Miller at the back end of this bullpen, then I mean, I don't. Dodgers, I don't really care who they're playing. I mean, they're one of the elite teams.
Which kind of gives you pause to go ahead and make that move to push your chips into the table, because you do have the stars here on the offensive side of the ball. You've got your Harper, you've got your Schwarber, you've got your Castellanos, who'll give you 162 games. You've got your growing players, your Stotts, your Bones. So I am not advocating for trading an Aiden Miller. That's way too much as far as I'm concerned from everything I've heard. But if you've got some of those mid-tier prospects that you can add to one of these high caliber guys, it's worthwhile looking into.
What do we think of, say, Abel, Crawford, and Kemp? Would that get it done? You're getting,
I don't know. I mean,
you're getting a guy in there too. I mean, they'll probably want 4 guys and 2 of your top 30, right? And that covers you with what you outlined, throwing in one more guy. But 3 years of control for one of the more electric arms is...
What is that, number 3, like number 8, and like number 15 in the system?
Something. I don't even.
Yeah,
think,
it depends. Kemp's down in the lower 20s, but speaking with Merton, he said that in-house he's much higher than most publications have him. So I think the Phillies view Kemp higher than maybe some of these other guys that we're seeing or that we think are better than Kemp. So maybe.
And I guess a lot of those lists aren't updated for what he's done this year, because last year he was solid with a good performance in the NFL, but like not the way he's been to start AAA.
Yeah, that, and I think a lot of it's subjective too. I mean, you could look at MLB Pipeline, you could go on Baseball America. I mean, they're all just very subjective lists. But throwing Crawford in, I think, gets the wheels turning. He's hitting over 300 this year. And the ground ball rate's still there, but it seems like the Phillies aren't worried about it because of how quick he is. He's one of the fastest players in all of minor league baseball. So
yeah, I talked to him a little bit last year, and he was saying about like he wants to stay within his game, acknowledging that that ground ball rate is part of his game with his speed. Of course, he was still trying to get some more line drives mixed in, but it seems like it could just be that he's one of those guys. Maybe he is like that Juan Pierre.
I think they wanted
Revere
him to be a
type?
little bit more than Juan Pierre, but yeah, I think that
Pierre
would.
had a great career.
He
had over
absolutely
2,000
did.
hits.
He absolutely did, but I don't know if 10 years from now Crawford turns into Juan Pierre, if that's where they were banking on him as a ceiling. But hey, Juan Pierre was great. I loved watching him play.
I think
Who
they would
I
be
mean,
happy with Juan Pierre.
half the league got to watch him up close and personal. He played for so many teams, you know. But doesn't change the fact that he was good. That wasn't meant to be a shot. He was very fun to watch. It'll be interesting though, right? These prospects, part of developing them is obviously to help your team, and I think a lot of experts feel as though if you get two guys who can help the team a little bit for each season from your system, then you're working pretty well. But part of the development is also setting them up to help your big league club, right? That there's been a lot of talk about the window with some of their core getting a little bit older, with Schwarber in the last year of his deal, JT in the last year of his deal, Nick with 2 years left. Some of this core, and then obviously the guys who are here a little bit longer are getting a little bit older, right? So you do need an infusion of youth, but you also want to take advantage of what you have going on right now.
Quick note.
Yeah.
I think I have a comp for Otto Kemp. I think he's kind of like a Matt Wallner of the Twins. That heavy side platoon player that could definitely hit a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not saying superstar, but that's a valuable piece.
I would agree. Yeah, like I said, I don't think right now Kemp is a plug and play every day type of guy right now.
Yeah.
So I agree. If you ease him in as a platoon guy with Kepler, and you mentioned Wallner kind of doing the same thing. Yeah, I mean that wouldn't be terrible. And again, he's an undrafted free agent. It's not like they put a lot of resources and a lot of money into this kid. So if you get that, I mean that's an absolute win and a steal if you're the Phillies, in my opinion.
Going back a little bit to one of our comments on YouTube, this is my one of my good buddies, Alex, chiming in. He's chimed in on most of the PSN Alley talks this year and last year. This was in reference to the Mason Miller talk. No, way too much to give up, and you can get other relief pitchers elsewhere. I tend to agree. While Mason Miller would be a difference maker, he's electric, obviously, but the cost may be too much when you can likely get comparable support elsewhere. You don't necessarily need a closer the way that this bullpen is laid out. You just need another guy who's comfortable pitching in high leverage, and they are available. The problem is that the more teams that are in on these talks, the more that cost gets driven up across the board. So hopefully they can do what the Cardinals used to do and start striking early, right? They used to, I remember the Cardinals used to start adding bullpen arms, whether it was through waiver pickups or trades like in early June, as opposed to waiting to the end of July, back in that like 2010 era Cardinals team. Alec, you look like you're champing at the bit over there to get in. What do you got for us?
Do you think the Orioles would trade Felix Bautista?
It's worth looking at.
I mean, he is basically
apart,
the right-handed Alvarado.
Yeah, they are falling apart over there too. So, something.
I mean, it's going to cost. I think he's under control for like 3 years, and he is coming back from.
There's this guy Gregory Soto over there. Maybe they would be interested. I don't know if that's. I don't know if that's.
Although, give me Sir Anthony back.
Arms, right?
Give me Sir Anthony back. Well. Everybody talks about Sir Anthony. It's just like, oh yeah, he was cooked. It'd be like, you never looked at his postseason numbers. He has honestly been like the best postseason reliever for the Phillies in this postseason era for the Phillies. Like, he's been really good, and it's just no notice. Then again, I'm biased. I once wrote at something called The Gallant Tale of Sir Anthony. So
I actually remember that piece, Alec. That was fun.
It was a two-parter, but never got to a part 3.
Kyle, you mentioned a lesser arm, and I don't know if this is going to happen because, as Chris mentioned, they already traded Luzardo in division of the Phillies, but Marlins have a reliever, Anthony Bender, Also a guy that I saw in person when he was with the Royals farm system in Wilmington when I was with them. He threw hard back then and he throws hard now. Really good ERA, looking at his numbers, a 1.89 earned run average across 19 appearances this year. Only owed less than 1.5 this season and has 2 years of control remaining. And their player of operations, their GM, but whoever's calling the shots there, it seems like they're willing to kind of move and try and be the smartest guy in the room. Obviously, they traded Luis Ariz really early, unexpectedly. So, maybe Bender is an arm that can be a guy. We just saw him, but I believe his name, Jake Bird from the Rockies. He's probably their only solid relief pitcher that they have. So
he and Harper have some history, but I think Harper.
That's water under the bridge if you want to win a World Series, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that would be fun. But you know what else would be really dumb but really fun? For the third time, having a stint from David Robertson.
Doesn't cost any prospects either, baby.
Listen, he's still a free agent. There was a connection to him even before the Alvarado stuff. If he does come back and pitch, why wouldn't you come back to a team that you've been with 3 times? Unless like the Yankees knock again. I feel like that's the only way he wouldn't come back to the Phillies. But wouldn't it be funny if what was keeping the Phillies from the World Series was third time's the charm of David Robertson?
Hey, man, the guy pitched pretty well for Texas last year. I mean, I was a little surprised that he declined his option, but he's probably at the age, you see this a lot more with starting pitchers, but guys get older and they're like, I don't feel like going through the rigmarole of spring training and off-season workouts. I'm going to work out in private at home, and whenever a playoff contender comes calling, I'll be ready. So it's not a bad idea, and clearly there's a connection there, not only with the history, but the fact that there were reports that they reached out before the Alvarado suspension. So, Alec, another guy to keep an eye on. Good stuff. But it really is a tough conversation, right? What do we need as an organization, what do they need to do to close that seeming gap to get the job done, right? They got there in 2022, fell a little bit shorter 2023, fell a little bit shorter last year. And like I said, that window could potentially be closing on some of these guys depending on how much money they're willing to spend on some of their better players, right? JT, how much are you willing to spend to bring back the consistency that he gives, even though the bat's diminished? Are you willing to bring back Kyle Schwarber at what will likely be more money than you spent on him the first time? He's having a career best season. Obviously, his career has exploded since joining Philadelphia, but his best year overall has been this year. The improvement across the board from that guy has been remarkable to watch. He's taken on the outward leadership role that Rhys Hoskins used to hold for this club. That has been, to me, the biggest story of that has been the biggest story of this season, is the evolution and the next step taken from Kyle Schwarber. So with only a little bit of time here left, guys, if you don't mind, I'd love to talk about what we've seen from Schwarber, the things we've liked the most from him this season, and what it's going to take for the Phillies to keep this guy. Do you extend him mid-season? Do you worry about it in the offseason, assuming the relationship's good? Alec, I know you were jumping in about something else, but I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Kyle this season, and should they make it a top priority to bring this guy back?
We're watching one of the most exciting offensive Phillies seasons ever. I don't think that's difficult to say. I saw on not Twitter the other day that he is like 5th in OPS facing left-handers, like in like the last, I think it was like 40 years. Anyway, the guys in front of him were Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa. Like, he's on one. And what he's done to evolve to hit lefties has been so impressive. This is a guy that hit under 200 2 years ago. And we were like, oh, well, he's hitting all these homers. Yeah, that's fine. Then he goes in the offseason, and all of a sudden he hits 250. Rose his batting average by 50 points. I think it was like 248. And now he's hitting, I believe, over 260. this is a guy that keeps evolving, and it looks like he's going to age well. He looks younger than he did when he was with the Cubs. He looked like a middle-aged dad back then. Now he looks svelte. Svelte!
Those knees being healthy has made such a difference for him.
Exactly. I'm not. You know what? Last year, when we saw him appear in like 2 games in the outfield, I got worried. Physically worried. This year, when he's been in the outfield, I've been like, yeah, he'll be fine.
Didn't he get injured one of the 2 games last year too?
I think he pulled like his groin or something against the Angels.
That's what it was a groin. Yeah, you put him out there for 1 game and you were terrified, and then but this year I put him out there whenever we needed it.
I haven't heard a peep about that this year. Like, I was personally worried last year. This year, it's like, oh yeah, Schwarber's playing in left field today. I guess somebody's getting a day off. Oh, Harper's going to the DH today, and they still want Schwarber in the lineup. I'm like, okay, sure, makes sense to me.
Chris, what have you thought about? Go ahead, finish up.
One last thought.
Yeah.
As for if they need to re-sign him, they absolutely do. This guy's your most reliable power bat. I don't want them to have to like majorly overpay, but he's getting a bigger contract than he originally did with the Phillies. Easily.
100%.
If it's going to approach $30 million, we'll see how the rest of the season goes on, but it just might.
Yeah, if he keeps this up, there's no way that he's not getting close to that, the way that top tier hitters are paid. I mean, especially if he keeps this up against the lefties, he's almost looking at reverse splits. His numbers against righties have gone down a little bit because he's been so focused on hitting those left-handed hitters and treating them all like the same approach regardless of the side. Chris, thoughts, feelings on? I know we already saw your yes. It's even ruined your camera's focus.
Destroyed it.
Like ADT ruins to mine.
Worth it.
We've seen him be incredible this season. Is it a one-off? Is the guy just in super focus mode, or is this something they should prioritize bringing back regardless of the dollar?
They should absolutely prioritize it. Outside of Boston and Fenway Park, I don't think there's another ballpark that suits Schwarber's power abilities. I guess maybe Yankee Stadium with the short porch, but I think it's so well laid out at Citizens Bank Park, and he uses the entire field there. So Alec hit the nail on the head, really. It's one of those situations where he is your best power bat. And if he does walk in free agency, you look at the team this season and what they did in the offseason, what were the biggest losses? It was in the bullpen. That's manageable throughout the course of the year. You lose a Kyle Schwarber out of the middle of your lineup, I don't know what you're getting to replace a Kyle Schwarber in the middle of your lineup.
That's the biggest issue.
I mean, maybe, but then what are you paying him as opposed to
more?
Exactly. So, the Phillies do have some good deals on the book. I mean, at that point, the Harbor contract has to be a bargain, you would think. So, it's one of those things that they've got some room there, but just with what Schwarber means to the group of guys, they do seem really close. They have since 2022. I definitely think that, unless you have a catastrophic ending to the season, a la Arizona Diamondbacks,
yeah,
I would have to imagine that he comes back.
Corey, your thoughts?
Yeah,
you have to bring back.
I mean, I'll play a little devil's advocate here. I'll say yes, but I wouldn't be surprised if the contract turns sour quicker than some people expect. I mean, we're talking about a team who's getting older offensively. He's going into his 33-year-old season. Defensively, he has no value. So you're paying $30 million a year for a DH, essentially. The numbers are great. I mean, you see on the screen there that John has just provided. I mean, really good numbers. Kyle, you mentioned the reverse splits. He's slashing 303, 446, and 758 against lefties this year with an OPS over 1,200. He's got an OPS of 832 against righties. So, yes, this season is phenomenal. not taking anything away from what Schwarber's doing. What he means to the clubhouse is also, I think, invaluable. So I think the Phillies will have to pay up. But if they don't, and Chris and Al kind of mentioned, if they don't, I would imagine they go all in on Kyle Tucker. Because I don't see Kyle Tucker settling in Chicago. The Cubs, they're fun. They're a cool story. They're playing pretty well right now. It's a weaker division. But I think Tucker wants to get paid. He did not get paid in Houston. I don't see the Cubs paying him that kind of money. I could see the Phillies backing up the trucks for Tucker and make a tough decision with Schwarber. They could still keep Schwarber, but I don't know if Kyle's going to take a hometown discount after the season he's putting in. So my answer is yes, they should sign him. I just don't know how it factors into the next couple of years with an aging roster where we're already talking about the window starting to close sooner than later. And we're talking about, a Justin Crawford or an Otto Kemp or one of these younger guys kind of being a jolt and an infusion of youth to kind of keep this team going. So that's what I would say. I think yes, but at that price point, I think it's going to be a bit harder for the team to pull the trigger right away. And fans obviously just want him because it's not our money. I mean, we'll spend money as fans and, we'll support the team, as fans and if we're covering them and whatnot. But that's where I stand. I think he's been fantastic this year, but I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope.
Alec, your thoughts?
I have one last thought. This really is a pivotal point for the Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
You're deep into a playoff core era, whatever you want to say. You got to start making some tough decisions. We already saw one tough decision happen this year with Cody Clemens, having to be DFA'd because he's out of options. Gets picked up by the Twins, and he's been fantastic. But he had no role on this team. He had nowhere to play. Nowhere. I think he had like 3 at-bats when it was finally time for Weston Wilson to come back. It had been about a month. I think it was 3 games, maybe not 3 at-bats. But they're going to be tough decisions too. We're coming up to JT and Schwarber. JT's been good for you, and he's been a leader for the pitching staff. But is he really worth re-signing unless, he takes a team-friendly deal for, say, 2 years? Or you cut him loose and you cut Schwarber and suddenly you have money to spend. You go for Tucker. You go for another star that you're paying. But also, at the same time, a guy like Otto Kemp that we were just talking about, does he get lost in the shuffle? Does he get traded? Is this another guy that, all right, how do we decide what to do with? Okay, it's not going to fit the puzzle. We have to ship him for a piece that does fit. There's a lot of questions on the future of the Phillies. Right now, things look good for the team in general. But what happens in the next year is anybody's. Maybe they finally win that World Series and it doesn't really matter what happens after.
Yeah.
But there's no simple answer to the future of the Phillies. And that's why you have a guy like Dave Dombrowski in charge.
Yeah.
They're both back
think
if they World Series. I will say that. That's my call.
It's possible. I think the thing with JT is if they had high-end AAA catchers ready to go, that would be one thing, right? But we've seen what Marchand and Stubbs do offensively. It's not bringing a lot to the table. If everybody else is stellar, then you can deal with that because both of them know how to handle a pitching staff and call a game, play great defense, great pop time. But JT, before the season started, JT felt like the more guaranteed re-signing of the two to me, just to be a bridge the gap to Tait or whoever else they may go get in a trade in the future. See how those guys develop behind him and then keep him with that veteran pitching staff where they don't really have to think twice and they can just trust the guy behind the plate doing half the work for them. The year that Schwarber's put in, John just had that. We just had the comment up. A career year at age 32 isn't uncommon, but sustaining that from 32 through 36 is a different story, right? So obviously it would depend on the length, but all the intangibles that he brings. These guys, every time you speak to someone, anytime I spoke to Brandon Marsh, or I speak to, when I talked to Austin Hayes last season, anytime you talk to these guys who come up, they have leaned on Nick and Kyle so heavily for their expertise, to watch how they work, to watch how they improve every single day. There's something about that value that can be lost pretty quickly if you let the guy who's the public voice of your team and the guy who's been the quiet example for everybody behind the scene, letting him walk and going somewhere else and implementing all those feelings and all that leadership elsewhere can feel like a shot in the arm. I think the people who were big Rhys Hoskins fans felt that even if the results on the field weren't the same, they felt like, where's that voice? Where's that center? Not that Bryce isn't like that, but he's more of I'm going to be the star and show by example. He's not the outward rah-rah guy necessarily. He's the guy who speaks when they're struggling and they need to pick me up, right? He's the guy who goes out there, hey, we all know what we're doing. We're all veterans. We're all going to take care of business. But you need somebody who's going to deal day in and day out with the media, and Kyle's been that guy for them. And then on top of that, having a career season, I mean, a historically great season, especially from a Phillies perspective, it's tough to let that walk away. It'll be interesting. Obviously, like you said, it's if they're able to convince him to sign an extension, maybe what we would call quote unquote team friendly. I don't think there's going to be any huge discount necessarily for him to stay. He's earned whatever paycheck he gets in the offseason. If they can convince him to wrap it up during this season, then maybe you get creative with some moves with other guys and still get a chance to go after Kyle Tucker. I'm not convinced that that's what they're going to do, but time will tell, right? I hate to put it that way and leave us on a generic response, but time will tell. We'll have to see how it plays out. If Kyle keeps playing like this, it's going to be a tough decision for this club. All right, guys, we are a little bit over an hour now. Thank you, everybody who was out there listening, for tuning in to Philly Sports Network's Alley Talk. Once again, my name is Kyle Fisher. We had the rest of the crew, Alec Costoval, Chris Babos, Corey Naito, on the stream with us. Make sure you give these guys a follow. They've been putting out great content all year. Chris and Corey cover a litany of sports for the PSN squad. So give them a follow. Check out their content. Corey, especially with the minor league reports, check in with him if you want to get an organizational look overall beyond just the day-to-day for the Major League squad. Guys, I'll go around. I'm just going to go clockwise on my screen. So before we wrap up, any final thoughts about the current state of the Phillies and what we expect over the next couple of weeks? Alec, I'll start with you.
I'm going to say something that no one has really said because it's a little bold for some people's tastes. But if Painter is going well when he eventually gets called up and the trade deadline comes around, why not try to flip Ranger Suarez for a back end of the rotation guy plus? There are certainly teams out there looking at you, Houston, with bullpens that have really good arms, and maybe they need one more postseason ready pitcher. Or Detroit. How about you? I think it's something you have to consider. It's a guy that is not going to be a Philly next year, and if he is, something weird happened. Because he got a new agent, and everybody knows.
Oh yeah,
that when you sign with the devil, you're gonna get the due. Scott Boras, of course, who we're referencing there.
Yes.
He's gonna get top dollar, and he's pitching really well. There may be some value as a rental, and if you got still 6 starting pitchers that you can use in your rotation, considering Abel as well later in the season.
I like it. A little outside the box, Alec. I like it. We'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Chris, what do you got for us, Phillies, next couple of weeks before we have another Alley Talk?
My bold take is going to be the Phillies will extend their winning streak to 10 games with yet another sweep. Their first at Sutter Health Park, maybe their only at Sutter Health Park out there in Sacramento, California. The A's are 22-29. They've lost 9 straight. They were just swept by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So, look, man, they're not a good team. Phillies have been rolling against not good teams, namely, as you mentioned, Colorado and Pittsburgh. So If they don't get the sweep, they definitely should take 2 of 3. But I mean, realistically, I don't see any reason, particularly when you look at the roster and the depth chart that the A's put out there. There really isn't a reason the Phillies shouldn't really run away with this series.
Corey, whether it's a bold take or just your feelings, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I think the Phillies enjoy this. I mean, last month the sky was falling, the team was already out of postseason contention to a lot of fans, and I think a lot of people forget how long a baseball season is. They've made up 7 games in the standings in less than a month. They are rolling right now, and I think the biggest thing of it all offensively is they're not reliant on the home run. As a team, I think 3% home run share, if you will, and that's below the middle of the pack in the league, but they're doing a lot of other things well. They're drawing walks, they're hitting. They've got the 7th lowest strikeout percentage in the league. So I mean, they're doing things that play well come postseason. And we remember that series against Arizona where they kind of just fell flat offensively. And the last 2 postseasons, the offense just fizzled, and they were waiting for that big home run. So I think this year they're just a more well-rounded offense. Everybody's clicking. And apparently, if you want success, go shave your head. So that's what I'm going to leave our listeners and viewers with, because apparently buzz cuts and shaved heads is synonymous with Philadelphia's success. So.
Winning culture, baby. That's what Philadelphia's all about.
I'm actually going to go to the shore. I'm just going to take clippers and just take it to the dome here.
Guys, if we're desperate enough, I will trim the beard. I'll take half of it down if we need to. Whatever we need to do to get this team over the hump. I'm on board. Chris, did you have one more before we wrap up?
Yeah, real quick, just to shout out Trey Turner, his team leading 12 stolen bases, to kind of go along with Corey and what he was saying, that the Phillies getting done with the small ball. It's exactly what Rob Thompson gave him at the start of the season. One of the days I was there, he was talking to the media, and I forget exactly what the quote was, but it basically was like, I don't need Trey to hit the home runs. We have enough people to do that. I want him to get on base, steal bases. And that's what you've seen over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it's one of the big reasons the Phillies have had some success. So keep an eye out for Trey Turner to keep that up. He's getting that big contract, but if he's able to use those legs, get the singles, get those doubles, and get those runs scored, it's going to go a very long way into continuing to keep the Phillies a winning ball club.
Yeah, and he's much better than a certain shortstop formerly of the Braves.
Oh, formerly, like that throw in for the recent news. It's obviously they're playing good baseball right now, and I think the key is to not change what they've done. Right, Chris, you mentioned it. Keep pursuing this pass the baton mentality. Right, you don't have to live and die by the home run. Keep to like Harper. He's going to bust out and start crushing the ball out of every part of the field, regardless of the ballpark. But right now, he's getting it done with singles and doubles and timely hitting over these last few weeks. If they can keep that up with the pitching staff that they have, especially that starting staff, how strong they are this weekend, you're going to see the 3 studs in Wheeler, Sanchez, and Luzardo go for Philly against the club that's occupying the Sacramento minor league baseball team, baseball stadium. John with another comment: the Phillies are undefeated in minor league parks this regular season, 3-0 versus the Rays in Tampa. We'll see how it plays out this weekend. Before this long losing streak for the Athletics, they were a pretty good team, as Corey hinted at earlier in the season. One thing I wanted to mention before we wrap up: Braves maybe not playing to the best of their ability, but after that slow start, have really played well, and they just got Ronald Acuna Jr. back from the injured list, so that will be a tough matchup when they get home, taking on the Braves for 3 before facing Milwaukee for 3 on a quick 6-game homestand. I think they go 4-2 over there. Milwaukee struggled a little bit. You may only take 1 of the 3 from the Braves, maybe after a long road trip. But I think if they can leave that series, that homestand rather, 4-2, you're looking at continued success and likely these guys continuing what they've done against lesser competition over the last week or so. Guys, once again, I know we're way over, but thank you everybody who tuned in Thanks for the comments in the chat, John, Alex, Billy. Appreciate you guys chiming in. Once again, you've been listening to Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. Give the main channel a follow at Philadelphia SN on X, formerly known as Twitter. Check us out on Blue Sky at Philly Sports Network. Whatever the rest of that Blue Sky makes you add to the end. Give us, everybody here, a follow in the group. Follow along with the great Phillies coverage that this team has brought all season long. Guys, we will get the next one scheduled really soon. We'll get back on the horn for the fans out there who want to get a little bit more insight. Want to thank you guys for your time today. And as always, go Phils.